An attorney and former teacher who's devoted most of his life to public service. Paul's worked for the state of Missouri, brave man, as an attorney in various positions, including more than 7 years as a general counsel for the Missouri State Auditor. In addition, Paul has been an assistant attorney general, deputy general counsel for the Missouri Tax Division in the Department of Revenue. That's how come he knows about budgets. Legislative director for the Missouri Department of Revenue, and is currently a legal counsel for DESE, Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. He's currently Columbia's school board member and is one of 4 coordinators for Parents for Parents group at the Center Project. Let me get that out. Paul is the proud father of 2 daughters. One graduated from Rockbridge, in 2020. The other graduated from Rockbridge this year. Both are currently attending Zoo. Thanks for being here, Paul. We also have with us another parent from the Center Project, Harry Castello, who's worn many hats. He served in the Air Force. Thank you for your service. He worked in manufacturing in many capacities, from associate to supervisor. He's worked as a technical training manager and assistant manager for a distribution center. He's currently a transaction coordinator for a local mortgage lender. Married for 23 years, Mazel Tov. 1 daughter attending MU and a son attending Rockbridge again. Thank you, be sorry. Thank you for both for being here.
Have that piece of paper. You just take it with you, that introduction paper. Thank you. You've got everybody's names. Okay. I think there we are, and you can see how you look up there. Pretty well centered. Okay.
All right. So I was asked to come and talk about the Senate Bill 49 and the impacts to our families around town with regard to that. And that's why I brought Harry, because Harry is one of our parents at Parents for Parents. So I guess I should start out. Parents for Parents is actually a group at the Center Project. We are parents of LGBTQ children. We meet twice a month, and basically we support each other. We help people get the help they need, but we also educate each other, because it's not really fair for a kid to explain to their parents what they're going through. It should be up to the parents to try to help themselves learn what the child is going through. And so we help the other parents do that, so the kid, while they're going through whatever the kid is going through, doesn't also have to be the educator for their parents. And there's more, and I'm sure Harry can talk about also whenever he talks, if he wants to talk about Parents for Parents. But Senate Bill 49. Senate Bill 49 was passed this last summer, called the Missouri Save Adolescents from Experimentation Act, or the SAFE Act. Essentially, this law makes it illegal for doctors to provide gender-affirming care, certain types of gender-affirming care to trans kids under the age of 18. So I'm going to go through the bill, and then I'll talk about how families are affected, because I think there's also a lot of misinformation about what is and isn't in the bill, and I think it's important to understand exactly what's in it. So first, the Senate Bill 49 has definitions. It defines biological sex. I'm not going to read the definition, but to say that it's a pretty prescribed definition that really has no medical basis. So I'm also going to be providing color commentary on this too. I should also warn you. Yes.
So just my general question is, does the definition try to put things into unique categories and not allow for all the variations that we know exist in nature?
Right. The biological indication of male or female in the context of reproductive potential or capacity, such as sex chromosomes, naturally occurring sex hormones, gonads, and unambiguous internal and external genitalia present at birth.
Okay. What if you don't have?
Hence my color commentary. Yeah, there is not as much of a basis in
reality.
In reality,
or science.
It defines gender. It defines gender transition. as the process in which an individual transitions from identifying with and living as the gender that corresponds with his or her biological sex to identifying with and living with a gender as a gender different from his or her biological sex. Healthcare providers is defined. Oh,
You're good.
okay.
She was looking for you on the screen.
Oh,
You're there.
so what exactly does the bill prohibit? The bill prohibits a healthcare provider shall not knowingly perform gender transition surgery on an individual under 18, and a healthcare provider shall not knowingly prescribe or administer cross-sex hormones or puberty blockers to a child under 18 years of age. So those under 18, no gender transition surgery, which rarely, if ever, happens, and no prescription or administration of cross-sex hormones or gender blockers. There is an exception, though, that the Democrats in the Senate negotiated. That exception is that it shall not apply to the prescription or administration of cross-sex hormones or puberty-blocking drugs for any individual under 18 years of age who was prescribed or administered such hormones prior to August 28th, 2023. And this provision right here also has an expiration. It has an expiration that it expires on August 28th, 2027. So this is in effect for 4 years. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because that might not matter.
I was just thinking logically, most people who aren't 18 are at least 14. And would you really start puberty blockers much before that anyway?
Well, puberty starts anywhere between 10 and 13.
Okay, that's true.
So
I was thinking maybe that was grandfathering in most of the people who would have.
it was grandfathering. It should be grandfathering on a lot of people, but more to come from that.
Right. Stay tuned.
And again, the expiration may not matter. The Dems may have been outplayed.
Okay, yeah, right.
So,
all right.
so that's more to come here.
Yeah.
So what does it also prohibit? I know some people think, well, can our local law enforcement get involved? No, there is no local law enforcement of Senate Bill 49. So what happens? There can be a license action against the medical provider because prescribing cross-sex hormones or puberty-blocking drugs in violation of that section shall be considered unprofessional conduct, subject to discipline. And possibly more importantly to what we're going to talk about in a little bit, there's also a cause of action that was slipped into this bill. So the prescription or administration of cross-sex hormones or puberty-blocking drugs to an individual under 18 for the purpose of gender transition shall be considered grounds for cause of action against the healthcare provider. The tort provisions and all of the limitations on usual medical malpractice don't apply to that action. And it includes a presumption that the individual is harmed by that if for some reason they are found infertile later. So now the doctor can rebut that presumption, but it starts with the presumption that the doctor is harmed. Essentially, infertility means that the doctor is going to possibly pay money under this particular provision. Now, what is so pernicious about this particular provision is that it can be brought until the minor is 36 years old. Because the exact language shall be brought within 15 years of the individual attaining the age of 21. So typically, the statute of limitations for a medical malpractice claim is 5 years. So what does this do? This means, so if a minor is prescribed hormones at, say, 14, that means the statute of limitations for the action is 22 years. So just think about that a little bit as far as this action. Doctors are afraid because what can happen in 22 years? Something happens to the kid, a kid dies, his parents' estate can come in, even if the kid didn't feel like they were harmed. There's a lot of potential in 22 years for a doctor to be sued. And most importantly on this is damages. The damages don't have limitation. We all know the legislature has been very clear whenever it comes to medical malpractice, they want to make sure that there are limits on these tort actions, not for this action. And not only does it not have any limits, the economic, non-economic, and punitive damages at a minimum must be $500,000. So $500,000 at a minimum. So if you've got $1 of damage, it's automatically.
Is that unusual?
That's unheard of in Missouri because they always limit
The other way.
the other way. Didn't happen here.
$500,000.
Oh, no, it gets worse. I'm not done yet here because the damages are triple. So not only do they get damages of $500,000, but that damages, because the section specifically says the award of damages shall be tripled for purposes of the judgment. So that means that if there's damages of $1, that becomes $500,000, which becomes $1.5 million. That's what the doctors are worried about. That's what Mizzou is worried about. And that's whenever Dr. Barron was here last week, that's what he was saying. We would be doing this, but for that, well, the Dems got outplayed, and that got put in.
Well, so is somebody suing the Attorney General for this?
Well, yeah,
And there are similar ones across the United States. Is it being sued other places?
there are portions of this that are currently being sued. There is the no case, which is going on right now, which is some providers and families challenging the ban for the children under 18. But there's other provisions of this that are currently not being challenged, that my understanding is that there are law firms out there who are currently working on getting clients to challenge things like that damages provision, like challenge the actions of healthcare providers who abandon their patients because of this. And we'll certainly be talking about the impacts. Of parents. Yes, I know there are, but yes. So some of the provisions that are related to that cause of action that I just talked about, normally you can waive rights. There's a provision here that says that there's no waiver of that particular damages provision. So you can't even sign off and say, you know what, my kid needs this so much, I'm going to sign off on it. I understand the risks. Not permitted here. And any settlement can't be confidential. We all know doctors like to hide their settlements. They wouldn't be able to hide this settlement. So as we know, the fear of this damages provision caused MU Health and WashU to stop continuing care for minors. So like I said, we have an expiration of the limit on the health care for children who are transitioning, but that may not matter because this damages provision doesn't go away. So that's going to go on into the future. So that 2020 expiration applies to the prohibition, but not the potential damages for the doctor.
I don't want to get you off track. We have a question in chat from Kathy. She says, do you know who or what entity actually wrote this bill? This sounds smarter than Republican legislators have demonstrated being.
I don't
Great question, Kathy.
I don't know. The original bill didn't have all that in it,
Yeah.
and it popped up in committee,
Yeah.
and it popped up during the negotiation. There are smart people who work on these things. I'm not going to necessarily say that the legislators who work on them, but there are smart lobbyists who work on
That's what
this.
Kathy was wondering. Do we know who
I
drafted this?
don't personally know
Yeah.
specifically. I am sure
No
it
one's
is-
taken credit yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think somebody's taking credit, but it's Mike Moon, and we all know he didn't.
I'm just gonna inject
Stupid
this.
people take
How
credit.
many other states have this currently? I mean,
Like this?
yeah.
I'm not aware of any. This
Not
is,
But
quite.
yeah.
Indiana close,
Yeah, I mean, do they have things like this? Yes, we.
the 3 damages, no.
Yeah, not as big, not as wide as this, but this is certainly. We all know Missouri is a laboratory for some of these things, and I would anticipate that, given that this worked that you're going to start seeing this during the next legislative sessions elsewhere, because getting Wash U to quit doing their clinic, that's a coup. I would bet that we're going to see this in red states all over, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
so Planned Parenthood in St. Louis is continuing.
In fact, I talked to Planned Parenthood during Pride.
Okay.
Jen did too. And in fact, Jen actually talked to him more than I did. So Jen, go ahead. This is my wife, Jen, by the way. And go ahead.
I'm trying to remember which, they are not providing to minors. I don't believe there are some Planned Parenthoods that are doing 16 and up. But at this point, was it the St. Louis that we talked to or the Kansas City?
Yeah, it was the representative who came to Pride.
Right.
So, yeah.
And so they have said, however, that if somebody wants to consult with them, the minors parents, they will help them find care. So that was really good news to hear, that because these folks, these doctors, I mean, their provisions say they will help you provide care. If they quit, they are not doing that. So that is an option for parents to schedule a meeting with Planned Parenthood, and they can help hook them up with a provider.
Yeah. So are there any providers in the state then?
At this time, we know of
Children's Hospital in Kansas City
Okay.
is currently doing things. They have I believe they have a clinic across state line. And so they can actually do some things in Kansas. We talked with some people from Cromwell, and that's one of the people they're suggesting to go to, because they're working very hard. They're working hard with their lawyers. They're making sure where their records are located and all of that to make sure that their patients are protected as much as possible. The problem is that's also Kansas. And we don't know what the next year's Kansas legislature is going to do, given that they've already passed bathroom bans and some other things like that.
Over the veto of the Democratic government.
Right. So it's still a little risky to go to Kansas. But I believe there's also some working on the Illinois side. I just don't have the names of who's doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, many providers are going to be reluctant to provide care in Missouri at all. So it's not actually the care itself that the legislators cared about, because there's a provision in here that it doesn't apply to disorders of sex development. So the exact same treatment can be used for a whole host of other medical problems, just not kids who have dysphoria, just not kids who because of their situation should be transitioned. So what else doesn't apply to? It doesn't apply to care made from complications from gender transition surgery or hormones. So if somebody was receiving care from somewhere else legally, came to Missouri, had some complications, they could still get care. And the thing that actually scares me the most is that it doesn't apply to a physical disorder, injury, or illness that places the individual in imminent danger of death or impairment of a major bodily function, which means that if a kid goes into the hospital because they have committed self-harm, they can get care. But if some of these children start realizing that, we could have a lot of problems. And that provision actually scares me the most, because I think we can. I think your phone. I think we can all realize what the implication is there for some of these children, and I'll be honest with you, that scares the hell out of me.
It's the Mormon problem, actually.
Okay.
If you're gay, you are imperfect, but you will be perfect after death.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's anyway. It's very scary. So some other provisions of the bill: no transition under Medicaid. So that applies to adults. So our Medicaid, our poorest people, we're just going to force them to detransition if they're on Medicaid. No transition surgery for state prisoners. No transition surgery for county prisoners. So really the only local enforcement here we have is that our jail won't be providing transition surgery, which I don't believe it ever has anyway, because nobody's in jail for as long as you would need to do that.
There's a question in the chat from Dave Taylor who asks, who is filing lawsuits and how many against this discriminatory and blatantly unconstitutional law?
Right now, there's one,
Just the hog.
but
No. No.
there will be more.
Yeah.
Yes, no, it's no, it's currently, unfortunately, they also lost the preliminary injunction, so that makes it harder to move forward, but,
No,
we
it's
have
spelled in.
NOE instead of DOE,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
NOE, it's because it designates a minor. Okay, so the implications. As I've been told, I'm involved for parents. We've heard from a lot of people. Typically, I would love to have more families here in front of you talking, but a lot of our parents, because they're parents of minor children, don't feel like they can be really public, which is also a problem because then we can't get our information out in the press. But I've heard from more than a dozen families. We've had people come to the Center Project to talk to us about it. There's a lot of families who are very hurt by this, both because either they have a child who was planning on transitioning, or they have a child who, as we've heard, has been abandoned by their medical provider.
Well, and Paul, not to mention families that are just terrified.
Yeah.
And the kids, maybe not directly affected, like my kid, not directly
Yes.
affected by this bill because they're not on hormones, but they're just terrified by the whole atmosphere. Why is the state doing this?
Right.
Why are
Right. And
why are the universities abandoning?
exactly that. The ones who are not affected, the LGBTQ children who are not affected, because they may not be trans, they may be part of the other spectrum. They're feeling like they're coming after me too, because of this. Because quite frankly, some of them are coming after them.
Calling their song.
Yeah. I mean, these kids are. I mean, they're kids. They're vulnerable, and we're attacking them. That shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen in our state.
Anywhere.
Yes. Anywhere. Yes. So many of the families that I've talked to didn't know about it till it came out in the press. Many of the families did not hear about it until the weekend before. This isn't. My kid, I would have to move if this was 5-6 years ago. My kid needed to transition. My kid had problems. Again, I don't want to, not my story to tell. I like to center it on trans voices if we're going to talk about trans kids, but my kid needed to transition. And you know what? A lot of the problems she was having slipped away once she started the transition. Once she got under the hormones, the problems that she was feeling, the problems she was having, washed away. Kids now are not going to be able to experience that if they are like my kid. And that is, again, scares the hell out of me. I'm going to pass it to Harry because
Right there.
Because go ahead.
So what's the scenario for adults over 18, but your daughter can help?
Right now, it doesn't affect
Unless they're on Medicaid.
unless they're on Medicaid, which
And I might point out that the LGBT population, they're a fair number.
Yeah.
So,
Because some of them-
vulnerable because they have
Yeah.
employment discrimination.
right.
Parent abandonment, things like that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. So it does affect a large part of the population as is, but we also don't know what's going to happen in this legislative cycle. We don't know what's coming up next. Are we going to have bathroom bans? Are we going to have, who knows what else come? Because as I said, we're sort of a petri dish here. We're sort of the test case, and we know we have legislators who can start pushing some of these.
Do you think the physicians who do this will go and talk to the legislature if they leave?
Yeah, they did. Some of them
Oh, they
did.
did?
Yeah. The problem was, sorry. Okay.
Oh, good. Jen went to more hearings than me, so that's also why I wanted Jen to come in.
Right, but
So during the hearings, there were physicians, there were parents. The folks that brought the bill didn't listen to them. They got up and they left before any parents, any physicians. Mhm.
Right. I guess I didn't know that the position.
Right, and they also, the legislators that brought this forward could not even answer basic questions about some of the terminology, some of the language of the bill. So it's very obvious this was handed to them to do.
There's a question in Zoom from Tyler, and Tyler, if you unmute yourself, we should be able to hear you here. You find it?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yay, go for it.
Yeah.
Hi, so it's not a question. This is something I wanted to bring to people's attention. I know some people that have been pushing the city council here in Columbia to make the city a LGBTQ plus sanctuary city, kind of following the model of like what they've done in like St. Louis, Kansas City, and I think Lawrence, Kansas. So I just kind of wanted to bring that to people's attention, and I can put my email address in the chat if people would want to reach out and help with that or just talk about that.
Thanks. I was actually going to bring that up at the very end that we are doing that. Brian is currently working on that, and I was certainly going to mention it. I think we should all be supporting the idea that this should be a sanctuary city, because if they pass some of the things that could pass, like passed in Kansas, we at least have a place where people can feel a little safe, a little safer, I should say, because it would never be totally safe in Missouri.
Yeah, and they still
What
can't get
is a
care.
sanctuary city?
Okay, a sanctuary city is basically a city where the officials, the police, the prosecutors in the city say they will not enforce certain laws. So, for example, if we have a bathroom ban and it says that that is a class 1 misdemeanor or class A misdemeanor, then we would get the prosecutor, the police, the sheriff, and everybody on board to say, no, in the city limits of Columbia, that is not going to happen. And that's what cities like Lawrence have done. That's what Kansas City has done. And so we're a group is working on that, and certainly
Not St. Louis yet.
not St. Louis, but Kansas City did do that.
So can they actually say, no, we won't enforce? Or do they have to say, we'll put this at the very bottom?
No, they can say we won't enforce, but then the question is each time we elect a prosecutor, each time we elect a sheriff, every time we have a new chief of police,
New
we're going to have
prosecuting
to make
attorney,
right. We're going to have to make sure all of those people are on board every single
So
election.
the chief of police things can be right on.
Yep. Yes.
So Al Plummer in chats, first he comments, it continues to be very disappointing that legislators focus on issues over which they have no control. He says, I would like to know what strategies are being pursued to address the concerns of legislation like this, and have there been any studies done on the psychological effects of this nonsense? I'm guessing on the people who are now not getting care.
There are people working on it. I'm really not able to speak to that right now.
Sure.
I mean, once we get to the legislative session, certainly we can get information out if anybody's willing. There is the Missouri Democratic LGBTQ caucus. Certainly everybody can join that. They are working on things right now, and hopefully by the legislative session, we'll put out a bunch of things to ensure that we have a better strategy than we did last year.
Dave Braithel's got his hand up. We're going to let him unmute and ask a question, and then I want to make sure that we let Harry come into the conversation. He's waiting.
Well, that's just, I wasn't sure if we,
want to look pretty, so.
Maybe Carol wants to say some more.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure if we were in question session or not, but it seems like we are, so I'm going to jump in. This is kind of a follow-up on my question to Dr. Barone last week when I said, where were the ordinary regulatory authorities and where was the medical community as a whole? I know your other speaker said there were physicians in the room, but by analogy, you know, when the fundamentalists and the Moons and wanted to stop stem cell research in Missouri, the medical communities on each side of the state got their act together and protected that in the Constitution, the Missouri Constitution. Now, you know, is the subject of gender identification so politically fraught that it even intimidated Washington University? So I kind of find that I'm kind of flummoxed that, it's, look, those people invent things like Lipitor. I mean, who does Missouri really think they're going to win in the long run over the medical community in this state?
Apparently they will if the medical community doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's happened? What do you have any speculation at all? Or any information at all about what happened?
Oh, yeah, I mean, whenever they have whistleblowers, as we did here, who are willing to not tell the truth, because I've talked with parents who actually had her as a caseworker. The experience, I have never met anybody who had an experience like she describes.
We're talking about the whistleblower
Yeah.
at WashU who brought the.
And the Attorney General said that she said this under oath.
There's an affidavit on the Attorney General's site that she signed under oath saying some of these things.
I
But
don't know about this.
oh, okay. So one of the things that came out was her last name is Reed, I believe. She was a whistleblower at the Washington University. She was a caseworker. She was an intake worker for the WashU clinic, and she went to the AG's office and said things like these kids were being forced to transition. These kids were transitioning without being properly evaluated. And I can tell you from the experience of myself and everybody else I've talked to, the problem is not that you don't get evaluated. The problem is that everybody wants a second opinion, and you're doubly or triply evaluated before you can actually get your help. Not that there is no doctor out there.
Yeah.
There is no doctor out there who just goes in and just gives somebody hormones. A lot of doctors say, I won't do it until I have a note from your therapist, a note from your psychologist, right, and you have actually socially transitioned for X amount of time. I know of nobody who just walks into an office and was able to get something. That is ridiculous, and it's not the experience of the families I have talked to who went to that clinic.
Well, you want to bring up here, we discussed last night, like in England.
I'm gonna put on.
Okay.
Wait, I would like Harry to speak. I'm all listening. He's been sitting here for 35 minutes.
Okay.
Please, I would love to hear who you are and what you have to add to this conversation.
Good afternoon. First, I want to thank Paul for roping me in. Oh, wait, it says inviting me. Read that wrong. But he's the salt of the earth, and I appreciate you having me here. The whole purpose for me being here is I'm a real world story. So this is my story, and I think that's why Paul wants me here. So I have a cisgender daughter going to Mizzou, as Alice said. Cisgender daughter she went to Rockbridge as well. And I have a trans son who's 17 years old. He'll be graduating this year. In 2020, our son introduced himself to us in December of 2020. At that point in time, we didn't know who he was, but that's when he said, "This is me. This is who I am." He did it a very, very clever way. He had put a sign on his door that said, "Oh, well, let me back up for a moment. My name is Harry. My pronouns are he, him." I learned this from my son. And he had put a sign on his door that said he, him. And it was odd, and we didn't know what that meant. I asked him about it. I said, at that time, Jade, what is this? I don't understand what this means. And he kind of pawned it off. I think he was testing the waters. We've always been a very liberal family. So for us, gender, sexuality, none of that matters. It wasn't conversations that we needed to have because it didn't matter. But he was testing the water. We found out later. So I asked him about it. He kind of played it off a little bit. And then the next morning, we found on our ottoman a booklet, a handwritten booklet, several pages, what to do if you're the parents of a trans.
And you went to parents to parents. your story.
Yes, it's coming. So that's when we found that out. We were shocked, right? It's not something that we saw coming. We didn't understand it. We were
Completely taken.
taken aback. We were flustered. Not disappointed in any stretch of the imagination, but just didn't understand. So we spoke to friends of ours, and they told us about the Center Project. So we went to our first meeting, met Carol, met Paul, and they kind of they opened their arms to us.
That's good.
They could see they had experienced what we had gone through. They could see where we were coming from and what we were experiencing. Thank you, Alice. And it was like a family. Sorry. It was like a family because we didn't know what we were doing. We had no clue, none at all. We had questions, and we wanted to make sure we were doing right by our son. That's all we cared about, was making sure we were doing right by him. So they helped us. Jay did a lot of his own research. He knew what needed to be done. He knew that a doctor would not prescribe medicine to him without seeing a therapist for a year. So we got him into a therapist immediately. We said, hey, Jay, live as a boy. Live as a boy for a year. You can do that for me, not knowing that that was something that was needed. I said, you can do that for me. I'm comfortable with it. It doesn't matter. But I want you to make sure that you are comfortable with what you're doing. Live as a boy. He started seeing a therapist, saw a therapist for a year. After over a year, in 2021, late 2021, we started treatment. Found an endocrinologist who was able to prescribe him HRT, and I could see the change in him. I could see it. The little things that would bother me about him were gone. He was who he felt he was. And we knew we made the right decision at that point in time. We knew it. So everything was good. Everything was peachy. Then we heard about these laws that they were trying to pass. But we felt we were safe because of what was in that law. We'd been doing this, right? Jay was safe. We felt very safe. On August 26th, which was the Saturday before the law went into effect, we got a call from our doctor. Our doctor said, I'm sorry, I can't treat your son any longer. I can't provide him any care. I can't prescribe hormones for him any longer.
The doctor had the decency to call you himself.
The doctor is an angel.
The doctors are not wanting this. The doctors that are providing this care understand how important it is. And they are not supportive of stopping the care.
She's an angel. And no, she didn't want to stop. She did not want to stop. She's done everything she can to make sure that we have treatment because Jay turns 18 in May. So we have to get from here to there without him running out. Because if he runs out, it changes him. He has to deal with what his body's going to do. Nobody cares. So the doctor wanted to make
Please
sure.
don't say nobody.
No, I meant, I apologize.
Saying we don't care what Jay looks like, but Jay cares what Jay looks like. Yeah. And feels like.
So we thought we were safe. We weren't. treatment has to stop. We have to get to April, or we have to get to May next year. Otherwise, we'll have to go outside of the state. The doctor's very hesitant in playing it close to the chest because university still has not provided any of the doctors you can't do this in writing. So nothing's come through in writing. They've never put this pen to paper and says, we can't do this, right? So the doctors are in limbo. Their doctors are in a bad spot.
So they read about it in the paper too.
Essentially. Memos. There's memos. There are
Yeah.
memos that have been provided. That's it. Memos.
And I posted in chat the last time the email that a doctor had sent to us that basically said, if you're providing this care, contact these people. And we need to talk to you, basically. If you have any questions, talk to the attorney is basically what that says.
And the story you're telling in Missouri is very important.
Absolutely.
But anyway,
Yes, we are.
So my purpose here, I think for me today is in moving forward is just to normalize the trans community to everyone, right? Because a lot of people, they say they don't know a trans person.
Yeah.
But they
It's
do.
not true. You know lots of trans people. You just don't know that you know that. Right? You don't necessarily know that. And that's the problem. We have to educate people. We have to educate everyone. Doesn't matter your political proclivity. Everyone needs to know, that they know people like this. I feel that I have to help remove that prejudice to help my son feel safe, right? Because right now he feels attacked. He absolutely feels that he's being attacked. And he's not one to show me he's afraid. He's not one to do that. But I know he is. Because he has to be. Right? I want to read something.
Gary, does he have good support at school?
He does.
Good.
The Rockbridge was an amazing school. The moment that we had decided that he would socially transition, he went to the counselors. The counselors called me and they said, hey, let's put a plan together. And they said, is it okay for him to use, what kind of bathrooms? I said, whatever bathroom he wants to use is the bathroom he can use. If he feels comfortable going to a men's room, then that's where he needs to go. That's where he feels safe, and that's where he needs to go. And they were fine with that. Absolutely. They changed his name. Yes, Rockbridge was an amazing school. They've
I'm really
been an
glad to hear
amazing
that.
school the entire time through this. So yes. This was but a prelude. Where they burn books, they will ultimately burn people as well. It was written by Heinrich Heine in a play in 1821, over 100 years prior to World War II. I saw an advert on the national news of a Republican in the state of Missouri who's running for governor, took a flamethrower and was burning boxes.
Heard about
And
it.
he said what he would do on the steps of the governor's mansion to burn books.
Mhm.
That's what I'm afraid of. The irony is that when Heinrich's books were actually burned, that happened. And he wrote about it 100 years. We know where these people are going. We know where these laws are taking us. And to act like it's not going to happen is like sticking your head in the sand. You can't not look at this. You can't not fight it. We need your help. We need your help to fight this.
We're having calls here at the office about people really concerned about losing democracy.
That's exactly what it comes down to.
Sure.
Well, and you asked where are the doctors? Doctors that were providing the care were there at the legislature, but why have they not come out in mass? Because they don't know trans people. We know that's not true. And they don't understand. And that's why it's so important what Harry is doing and putting a face to it, because they are starting with a very vulnerable population that is fairly small and going after them because people aren't paying attention. But what's next?
But there's another issue with doctors. They won't come to states like this, or they're leaving.
We
Paul and I
actually,
talked about this yesterday on the phone.
Go ahead. You were talking to the same doctor I was. So.
yes, we were speaking with a young doctor and just amazing. And she had planned to stay in Missouri, and then this passed, and she's now going to finish out her residency and move to California because she
Good blame.
refuses. Pardon me?
Who can blame?
Oh, exactly.
They don't
Be-
want to practice here. Between the Dobbs Act and this,
Right.
Yep.
they can't take care of you.
Right. They are being asked to do the opposite of what all of the science says, what all of the American Medical Association best practices are. They are being asked not to do that.
And to Al's earlier question, where was the AMA when all this was going down? You know,
AMA, I don't think was in it, but
I mean,
one of the
or those
The pediatric-
endocrine,
Pediatric. I don't know what it's called,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
read that the pediatric.
right,
group
a couple of the
Yes.
a couple of the specialty fields were in it. I think the endocrinologist and
shouldn't
the
they be
pediatrics
protecting,
were in it.
shouldn't they be protecting their doctors from this litigious, bad, all
Well,
these limits and the lengthening and hello, do your job.
there's certainly an argument that that the damages are excessive. It becomes a due process issue, and I think that will be challenged at some point. It's just not there yet. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Harry.
sharing and being here.
Thanks for letting me share.
So just a couple side issues. Senate Bill 39 also passed, which is the trans sports bill. Just want to pop that out there.
That almost seems
Um,
naive compared to what they passed.
Right. It's minor. It's minor in scope, but it does make our LGBTQ kids feel like they're not welcome in our schools. And we all know how important it is to ensure that our students feel welcome in our schools.
And
And-
it's not minor.
No.
Yeah.
It minor in the sense it's a small number of people it affects, but it actually affects all LGBTQ children because they no longer feel as safe in the educational environment because they know that this part of their population is being targeted. We're worried about the upcoming legislation, bathroom bills, adult care bans, and things like that.
What's an
And-
adult care ban?
Yeah.
Not allowing adults.
Right.
out there.
Which
Oh.
something like, if you recall, the AG actually put forth an adult care ban
There you go.
through regulation that was not ultimately promulgated, but he proposed a regulation that would have been an adult care ban. And he was very explicit, we are proposing an adult care ban. And then, of course, Sanctuary City. Right now, the plan, the draft would limit local law enforcement of anti-LGBTQ laws, would bar the city from using funds to enforce other laws, would recognize that bathroom bills are not enforceable. Just from a practical matter, it's impossible to do because the person who is targeted most when we're talking about bathroom bans are not LGBTQ people. They are people who, maybe a woman who doesn't look as feminine as she should look, and I'm using quotes here, they're the ones who are targeted more than even the LGBTQ person.
And how are you
Bathroom
gonna
bans
know
are not
unless you inspect
enforceable
someone's
unless you're walking in the bathroom naked.
Right.
I mean, that's truly the only way to do that. It is. Working on, I know the people working on it are working on a coalition. And then, of course, the possibility for the county to pass the same thing. I believe that there is a good chance it will be on the Disabilities Commission meeting on next week, next Wednesday, I believe. So be watching for that. I don't know if it's next week or if it's coming up, but it should be on one of the agendas to start talking about. And please talk to your city council people and recommend that we start pushing that in advance of the legislative session so that at least some of our people here in the community can feel a little safer in Columbia.
Amy, I'm sorry I didn't get to you quicker. Did you want to add something or ask?
I'll try to be really brief. I had a comment. I'm also the parent of a trans person, and thanks for your story, Harry. And their coming out story is very similar to Harry's, so I won't repeat that part. They're a trans feminine person. who came out at 15. We got them on feminizing hormones at 15, and it did change their life. They're 22 now, and they saw the writing on the wall in the fall, and they and two of their trans friends moved to Colorado. They were happily working and living in Columbia, had lots of friends, worked at the library, but they were afraid. They were all afraid. And they left. And last time they came to visit, they've been in Colorado, where Colorado has safer trans laws and a friendlier atmosphere. They came to visit and they told me they're just like, it sucks to be kicked out of your hometown. And they didn't want to go. Some trans femme people are more identifiable than others. And we did start their hormones at 15 before they grew facial hair, but they're quite tall and they have quite a deep voice. And they're afraid. They're literally afraid to walk outside alone, and they get yelled at. And their feeling, and maybe it's just this sense, is that Missouri's never been that safe, but it feels even more dangerous to them right now. And even before these laws went into effect, I just want to add to how this affects people who are not children, because if this had happened when my child was 15, like Paul said, we would have had to move to take care of our child. But my kid, when they come to visit, they say, or before they go out at night with their friends, they say, am I going to get hate crimed in the bathroom, Mom? And it's kind of, I'm saying it very serious. It's kind of a joke between us. They're carrying their purse. They're like, am I going to get hate crimed in the women's bathroom? It's a serious topic. So I just wanted to add one more voice, and I just want to thank Paul and Harry for speaking so well. And I do agree with Paul's point that we should center on trans voices. And so anyway, thank you for this session. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
I'll add, Sarah Catlin speaking for those at home, many people in this room helped to knock doors for Catherine Sasser and get her elected to the school board to sit with Paul and serve. And she was serving and was, doing that service to our community. And she and her entire household and her ex-husband's entire household all picked up 2 entire households of people and also moved to Colorado over this very issue. And she did it very publicly. There was an NPR story, it was in the paper. I'm not telling tales out of school, but
no, we have other
know people.
We have other families who have done that too, out of P4P, or their children. We've got one family who her child no longer lives in the state of Missouri.
You have to send your kids away with relatives.
Right. And so now lives a full day's drive away instead of living just a few minutes drive away. It's the reality that families are facing, and I realize I'm centering this on families because we're talking about minors, but it's true. It's not just it's the whole family structure that is destroyed by these bills.
And then it tears the fabric of our community. We lost one of our leaders.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, David.
But we still have. You have.
I'm doing the best I can.
I wanna remind us of a few positive things, maybe. Like that one, I was going to vote for somebody else. There are a lot of good candidates, and something told me to put my vote to Paul. And now I know why.
Always support unions.
Well, that was probably the first thing it did, but it's actually this reason now. And I kind of want to remind you that we're going to win.
In the long run.
These kids in the universities and the schools are with it.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get there. And I'm talking to you about someone who knew he was gay from the age 5. From age 20, I was associated pretty strongly with communists. And then I got degrees from Harvard and Berkeley. By the time I got to Missouri, there was a price on my head, and I lived in fear all the time. I'd been trained in Indiana how to do that, but it is, you're not wrong to think that it's scary. It is scary, and there are great costs that come to any person who's going to face this. But we're winning. We're going to win. And it's people like Paul and incredible parents that are going to make it happen.
So, just to summarize the impacts, what I'm hearing from you is the impacts are like the actual technical impacts about not being able to receive care. Then there's this element of families being split up and of fear. Am I missing anything else? Is there another like key impact you want to point out?
Mental health.
Yeah.
Is that
Right.
applied there?
Yeah,
A danger to lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking about a lot of these children, not all of them, but a lot of these children do exhibit self-harm behavior when they're first coming out. And so, we do have children who, I wouldn't even say it's the majority, but we do have a minority who do things like cutting, do things like that. But you know what? The amazing thing is they get onto hormones, they start living their lives the way they should. That behavior goes away.
They have hope.
They have hope. They're able to live. And so what's going to happen? More kids are going to be harmed.
Does anybody in this room or on Zoom have the statistics for I've seen it, but I don't have it at my fingertips, how much more likely, like percentage wise, a trans kid is to attempt to take their own life than just the standard
I don't know them off the top of my head,
but it's significant.
significantly
It's
higher.
very
All
significant.
LGBTQ
Yeah,
kids
right.
are much higher risk.
Right.
And when we were going to testify at the legislature, we're saying things like, kids are going to choose to take their own life as opposed to having to live until they're 18, have their body changed. And the Republican Party's like, quit saying kids are going to die. And my response is, then quit doing things to make kids die.
Right.
They felt like, we were being dramatic. It's not dramatic.
Kids at that age don't have the
Right. It's not just
brain
those
cells.
kids. All kids are in danger.
My child would not be alive today had they not received care.
I know another one, at least one more.
And kids at that age, their brains don't process consequences
Right.
that far in the future. They really, just the way their brains are formed, they're
Right.
thinking about today, they're thinking about now. They don't have the patience to think, oh, if I just stick it out for 3 more years.
We know a family who their child, she had talked to their child and said, let's just wait till you're 18.
Mm-hmm.
And he looked at his mom and said, I won't make it to 18 if I can't transition.
Alice?
So I'm just gonna give a plug, because we're sitting in the Democratic office, to get help from your families when we're fighting these elections next year. Because those are the people that made those laws, but we can change that. And we have an opportunity to elect a Democratic state senator instead of Cal Broden, who never has supported any of us in this room in Boone County. It's so important. 3 House seats, they lose the supermajority, and they
That's
cannot
everything.
pass a trans bill because the Democrats can stand up and walk out. So we need your help.
Right.
So that's my plea.
And Dave Rayful.
40% actually attempted it.
Right.
Yeah. I'll have to thank Dave Taylor. He's gone to PubMed, to the National Library of Medicine, and found the study that says they have data that shows 82% of transgender individuals have considered killing themselves and 40% have attempted it, with it highest among transgender youth. Yeah, I told you it was a shocking number.
That
I didn't
number
want to be
goes down
wrong.
significantly if they've got family members or an adult who support them.
And
Even
it's easy
one
to get
adult.
guns in this.
Yeah, he got it. Thank you, Dave, for looking that up.
Thank you.
So our kids can open carry a weapon at 14, but they can't receive
Bill said
health care.
6 months.
There's no
There's no
an
open.
infant can open carry
In Missouri.
in
yes.
Missouri, but is not able to if they
Make healthcare
end up being trans, they can't make those decisions. Yes.
It's inappropriate for the legislator to be prescribing medical care.
Right.
And I do blame the doctors. I have a classmate at Harvard, who is on the wrong side on this thing. He doesn't know anything about these things. He's a radiologist. All he knows is that if he helps elect Republicans, is his taxes won't be as high.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I'm afraid that it does come down to the political fight, as Alice points out, that there has to be somebody who's talking about the real needs of people and not just my selfish needs.
to have lower taxes.
That in his
Yeah.
case, I have to
Right,
know. That's
right.
the
No,
case.
but I mean, I don't think he's not alone.
No,
that's-
among doctors, I think
But
that
that's-
who are
that's what
afraid
they're
to do
interested
it
in.
because to the others, it's like the malpractice thing.
Right.
I would
Correct.
actually argue that the destruction of the schools is ultimately about property taxes because
Right,
we've
of course,
we've
yes.
lowered all other taxes so
Right.
much that now they need to start destroying property. Because if you have $1 million house, you're gonna be paying property taxes on it. Your property taxes may be higher than your income taxes at that point. So what do? You have to get rid of the schools so that you don't pay as much property tax.
It's hard to have this conversation in front of parents who are concerned about helping their children. This
Yeah.
just drives me up the wall.
I truly feel that if more people understood what's going on, but people are so busy in their everyday life, if this doesn't touch them, they have no idea it's going on. And I truly think that if, we can get the word out, the Missourian has done so many good articles to really bring this issue to the forefront. Parents like Harry and his amazing son who has gotten out and done public speaking.
Been willing, yeah.
Yeah.
Help themselves.
That's what's going to help because I truly feel the majority of Missourians would be horrified if they understood what was going on.
And this is not like somebody becoming gay just to have fun like I did. It's about it's about survival. No, someone who goes through the transition is still facing a long and difficult time ahead to do what they need to do to get everything. I mean, we all face our difficulties, but they have really a long one. Nobody chooses that for their kid. No kid chooses it for themselves. None. It's there, and all the parents and those courageous doctors are trying to help them. And our legislators are making this illegal, and our insurance companies are enforcing them.
Yep.
We can end on a light question. Dave Taylor wants to know where we can get a rainbow plaid shirt.
I have been perusing the internet and it's ironic. I was talking to my wife driving in. Like, what's funny? The guy who wears white shirts and a tie every day for 20 years is now known for loud gay shirts.
You look better.
Yeah.
I think I do.
I agree.
Yeah. And I'm more relaxed now.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for sharing your stories. And sorry that you have to out those kinds of personal stories in order to get justice for your children. I'm gonna Pam's gonna do the announcements. I think you have to mute your computer. Just working on it. Oh. That's right.